Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight for, I believe it's the fourth or fifth, the sixth maybe, event of the 2023 NASW New York City Social Work Month series, Staying Encouraged in Private Practice. Just a few items before I hand it over to today's hosts. My name is Anjail Ameen-Rice, the Manager of Community Engagement and Volunteer Initiatives here at the NASW New York City chapter. I coordinate, organize, and facilitate a lot of the free community engagement events like the Social Work Month series and more here at the chapter. I'll be as quick as I can. I know there's tons of info being shared. I want to maximize your time with our host today. If you are having any technical issues with audio or visual, please message me in the chat section, and I'll be happy to try and assist troubleshooting. Post-event and email will be sent to all attendees with the recording of tonight's event, information on how to get involved with NASW New York City, membership info, and information from today's event, which is including, I believe, the PDF version of today's presentation as we discussed. We hope that when registering, you opted to join the NASW New York City email list, which gives you access to all of our updates, news, and upcoming opportunities. Every Wednesday, we do have our weekly digest, and that gives you tons of access. So what's coming up at the chapter? For the rest of the month, the chapter will continue to have various events for the Social Work Month series. I encourage you all to join us. In April, we are having a new Self-Care for Social Workers series at the start of the month. This self-care series is a member exclusive item, so if interested, make sure your membership is active and you're logged into the website so you have access to the schedule. It's all free for membership. In addition to that, Currents, the biannual chapter newsletter, has reopened for submissions, and yes, we do accept submissions from students, so spread the word. And of course, applications for our student liaison program, the NASW New York City Cares Member Ambassador Program, as well as our Mentors Program reopens for the next round in May. Lastly, registration for the NASW New York City Virtual CE Conference is open. You can earn up to 9 CE contact hours during our 2-day virtual conference. During Social Work Month, we are offering an early bird discount until March 31st, so we encourage you to invest in yourself today. If you don't need the CE contact hours but still want to engage with the conference, the chapter is currently seeking volunteers to support the event with opportunities to engage with leading social work professionals and get highlighted in our spring-summer issue of Currents. I know that was a lot of information. I just wanted to make sure that everybody had it. As I mentioned before, all of this information about how you can get involved and engage with the NASW New York City chapter will be included in your post-event email, along with everything shared during today's event. Expect that email to be sent tomorrow morning, so keep your eyes open. If you have any questions, I will drop my email in the chat for you shortly. Once again, thank you all for joining us today. Without further ado, it is an absolute honor to introduce the host for today's event, the co-chairs of our psychotherapy and wellness group, Anjail Ameen-Rice and Tanya Vargas. Whenever you're ready, ladies.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Angelique. This at NASW, we have no idea what we would do without Angelique. So I wanted to first make sure that everyone can see the PowerPoint. Stay encouraged when you feel discouraged in private practice. I think everyone can see. Perfect. So we have an agenda. So we're going to do brief introductions in just a second, kind of talk about why we're here, kind of hear a little bit about you, what setting you're in, having the actual presentation itself. This, as Angelique stated earlier, this everyone is going to get a one-page PDF of some of the questions we asked during our presentation. And Angelique also mentioned that this webinar is being recorded. It is going to be posted on our committee page, and it will also, I think, be posted within the weekly digest email as well. So there'll be multiple ways of accessing this webinar after it is over. So introduction, so I'll give it to Angela.
Hi, everyone. I'm Anjail Ameen-Rice. I am a licensed clinical social worker. I also have the R psychotherapy privilege, which apparently is being dropped shortly. So I guess that didn't matter in my life. No, I'm just kidding. I have a group private practice in Staten Island, New York. We are a combination of in-person and telehealth. We've extended through all of New York State, whereas previously we were just New York City. And we also work with people in New Jersey, children, families, couples. We work with mainly people who have anxiety and depression, but we also work with people who have a variety of mental health issues. I do private speaking events. I was actually at an event this morning speaking at a junior high school about mental health, which was really amazing to speak with preteens about mental health. They know a lot more than we think, so it's important to catch them early and make sure they're learning accurate information. I also participate in a Facebook group called Clinicians of Color, which is started off as a Facebook page, but has now grown to an organization as an LLC. So I'm also part of the NASW Wellness Group, Psychotherapy and Wellness Group, and I'm happy to be here with everyone this morning. Well, afternoon.
Perfect. And then my name is Tanya Vargas. I am the other co-chair of the Psychotherapy and Wellness Group. That said, I have my own solo private practice. I actually only do it part-time, so I have a small caseload of about 5 clients. In my full-time position, I am a program director for an intensive mobile treatment team with Institute for Community Living, Inc., based in the Bronx. With my solo private practice, I'm actually licensed in 3 states. So I see people in New York, New Jersey, and in Massachusetts. And I've been part of the board of directors as well for NASW-NYC for almost 6 years now. Can't believe it's been that long.
Time flies. Okay.
Straight into the purpose.
So our purpose today is to really encourage people in private practice. Go through highs and lows in this field. When we start off, we want to feel great about helping everyone and having this vision and what we're doing. And somewhere along the way, it gets a little bit messy. So we want to also help folks stay encouraged to think about strategies that they're currently using, reflect on if they need to adjust their strategies, recognizing your areas of expertise and figuring out, are you really tapping into your areas of expertise? Are you glazing over them? Can you build on it more? We're also going to talk about networking opportunities and recognizing marketing opportunities as well.
So we want to hear from all of you. This, I know you were on camera, so if we could see your faces, if, you know, sometimes I know there's a little bit more technology issues on the hand, if you want to be able to put it in the chat as well, of what kind of setting you work in, if you're already in private practice and a group practice, or if this is something that you're just considering and just want to kind of hear more about. Perfect. We got people in a school setting, exploring opening a private practice. Amazing. Yeah, I know opening a private practice can be very daunting. And so some people want to kind of know the highs and lows before they get into it, which absolutely I respect it. So we would love to hear from you as well.
So I'm looking in the chat. I see Julia says that she works half-time in her own private practice and half-time in a group practice. And is Aisha or Aisha? I work full-time in a school setting and she has a private practice.
Perfect. And those who are working either full-time or part-time in a practice, what are you seeing? Do you see children and families, couples, just adults? What's that? Is it a, you know, kind of mixed bag, a little bit of everybody? Perfect. Jennifer says she's trying to get into private practice, seeing adults. Aisha works with preteens to young adults. Julia works with children, adolescents, and families. Yeah, and don't be afraid to, turn on the camera, get off mic. That's also okay.
And Desiree she's solo private practice in New York City with adults experiencing anxiety, trauma, and high sensitivity.
Very nice. Perfect. So it seems like we have like a mixed bag of young adults, children, adults, mix of people thinking of entering private practice or just kind of starting, people in their own practice, people in group practice. And so thinking of whether you're already kind of in it, you're settled, or this is something you still are thinking about, these are just some reflection questions. And this will also be sent to everybody after this presentation as well of, who are you as a practitioner or clinician? People think of kind of the phrase like, you know, what do you want as your niche? You know, we can definitely say adults, but I appreciate who was ever in the chat, I already forgot your name, I'm so sorry, who said they worked with high anxiety. You want to work with, a specific population. This is, which we'll talk about a little bit in future slides, talking a little bit about marketing as well. We can be psychotherapists, we can be clinicians, but the more in depth we are about who we are as clinicians, it's easier to, one, get referrals, easier to network that way as well. Obviously, why are you doing the work that you do? For most people being social workers, we want to be able to help people, we want to be able to guide them, but it's also then kind of creating a mission and a vision statement for your private practice, or just knowing the group practice that you are in, of what is their mission, what is their vision, is it something that you align with? And it says, as mental health professionals, we also can struggle sometimes. We also need assistance. We also need guidance. So are there any other mental health concerns that you are not currently that needs to be addressed? That is also okay. They said, as a therapist, we also should have our own therapist as well. I know I do. I really rely on her. She's great, absolutely phenomenal. These are people that you can bounce even your own ideas off of, like your own private practice, along with dealing with any personal issues that you may have. And then, of course, how long do you want to do this work? Is this something you only envision part-time? I only want to do this for a few years, or like, nope, I want to make a career shift. I want to do this for the next 20, 30, 40, 50 plus years. We have to be able to pace ourselves and making sure that we don't get overworked and overburdened too soon. And along with that, what are your fears, limitations? Also, what are your strengths? Everyone's coming into this field as social workers, as clinicians, with strengths and needs, and being able to figure that out from the get-go will help you hone in on figuring out supervision style, what kind of support that you may need, and also hearing from any specific clients. If clients are coming into with issues, realizing, this is, not my area of expertise, or this is something I have actually very little knowledge about, being able to find other people so you can refer those clients to more appropriate resources and figure out, is this actually the best match for me? And of course, how much time do you have dedicated to grow and develop your practice? Along with being clinicians, being an LMSW, being an LCSW, we need continuing education credits. So being able to make sure that you have time for that. You have time to learn up on new theories, new resources, of how to engage with clients and specific populations. And so from thinking of, what your vision is, what your mission is, you're kind of assessing your own business model. So we kind of broke this up into 4 separate categories of it being, first of all, it's you. You are the main part of this circle. What is your self-care routine? Do you want other employees? Do you want to hire others? Are you part of a group practice? Again, what is your mission? What is your vision for your private practice? Clients, how are you going to structure your day? Especially if you want to do this part-time, are you going to see 1 client every day for 5 days? Are you going to see 3 clients one day, 2 clients the other day? Or are you going to, kind of move part-time to, is it a full-time, part-time, and kind of do 2 full-time or 2 part-time positions? Kind of the not as fun legal aspects of it, thinking of taxes, liability insurance, CEUs. Are you the one setting those up? Do you have a network that can kind of automatically connect you, remind you of CEUs, remind you when to pay your taxes, remind you how much taxes you actually have to pay, remind you of like, oh yeah, your insurance, limited liability insurance is about to expire, we need to renew these. And then just kind of like the other networking, supervision, advertising. Again, is this something that you are going to take on yourself? Are you going to be able to hire someone? Is it in your best interest to have someone do these for you? And this also goes a little bit into how you want to organize yourself and organize your time. Yes, this Aisha, rude awakening. When I did my taxes this year, I need to plan better. Absolutely. This with social workers, most of us, I know I'm not a money person. I am not a math person. I did not get into the social work field for math. So doing taxes, absolutely. Trying to figure all that out is absolutely daunting, especially you try to over budget and you're still Government says, no, you're still shortfalling, you still owe us some money. It's never great. And so now you know better for the future. But for a lot of social workers, they don't necessarily know from the jump that this is something that has to be done, especially if they've, yep, Anna's saying, I heard it's 15%. Also, this is also one of those fun debate questions because it also all depends on how you file your taxes. If you are filing, as a single person, if you are married filing jointly, if you are married filing separately, and it also depends on the state. If you reside in New York, or if you are like me, you reside in New Jersey, but your primary work is in New York, you still have to pay New York and New Jersey taxes. I have one client in Massachusetts, so I technically also have to pay a little bit of taxes to Massachusetts as well. So it's all a case-by-case basis too, which also makes it that much harder to get information, especially for social workers. We just want to know, is it a percentage? Is it a set amount? The easier, the better. Especially at the beginning, there is no easy way. It is a little bit of trial and error, but absolutely talking to peers, talking to people who have been in their own private practice for a while, kind of hearing what they've done, if they're using a program, if they're getting an accountant, a CPA to kind of give them this information and relying on the CPA, or if they're just doing it all by themselves. Everybody is different and what they feel comfortable with, but also realistically, what they feel comfortable budgeting with. Hiring an accountant, hiring a CPA, it is going to cost money. And some people feel like, especially at the beginning, it's not a necessary expense, while others, that is the first expense that they want to pay for. And again, it's all personal preference, but this is part of assessing your model, your business model, figuring out what is the best for you. What is going to be easier for you in the long run? What is going to make you feel comfortable? What is going to make you feel safe? But also kind of looking at as a self-care perspective of timeframes. How much time do you want to put into kind of each category of, we always put self-care as the first one, we put 20%, which Anjail and I also kind of went back and forth on, because self-care is incredibly important. If we are burnt out, our clients are going to be most likely very aware that we are burnt out. We are not going to be able to give 100% to them. And we want to be able to give 100% to our clients. So it's making sure that we feel our best, that we feel good. Looking at the time frame for business focus, but also the direct work and clinical work. Specifically, again, how much time do we actually want to spend meeting with clients, talking to them, and engaging with them?
Right, absolutely. And just to add to what Tanya was saying, these percentages are really up to the individual. We want to make sure, if we are lacking in the business development portion of it, that we may want to increase that to maybe 30%, 40%. If you're spending a lot of time not having clients, then maybe you don't need 60% dedicated to your clinical practice work, because you're just not seeing clients at that point. But we definitely also want to maintain that self-care routine. The clinical practice work is why we do this, but as you know, if you don't have clients, you don't have a business. So we have to keep a healthy balance between all three. Okay, so wanted to explore marketing pros and cons. We have different areas that we can market to individual clients. We can do in person, we can do virtual, direct mailing, emailing, website, or actual joining groups. In person is interesting, right? We know over the past few years, in-person events have really changed how they've been structured, but we do know that they're coming back slowly. So for some people, in particular those with social anxiety, they start to panic a little bit, where they think, I have to go in person and talk to people. You kind of do, right? If you want to be what we call a small business owner or a self-proprietor, you do have to learn how to talk to other people and sell your product. It's no different than walking into a store and a salesperson coming up to you. You're selling your product, and in our case, it's a service. We're selling a service. So you want to look for opportunities to be able to meet with people in person. Think about yourselves. Most of the doctors that you use, or the personal services that you use for yourself, you usually go based off of someone else's recommendation. Yes, we read reviews on Google. Yes, we read reviews on Yelp. But when we hear another person say, hey, I had a good experience with that particular person, it holds more weight, People do the same with us. So when we're able to talk to someone one-on-one, and then they're able to share about our services with another person in person, it really makes it that much more appealing for people to want to connect and find you. And they will find you virtually. So the option of in-person therapy and virtual, again, has grown tremendously. People are looking for both. In my practice, I didn't think anyone wanted to come back in person, but we do receive referrals from individuals who say, I only want to come in person. I don't want to do virtual. I'm on screen all day for work, or I'm on screen with my kids' school or teachers. I want to sit with a person. So we have to keep in mind that virtual does not work for everyone, but people are still interested in person as well. You can do marketing virtually if you're at an event, a virtual event, and they leave time for people to identify where they work and talk about what they do. Join those meetings. Go to workshops just like these. It is another way to market and talk about what you do and be able to share it with like-minded individuals, which is always helpful. Direct mailing, what's that? Stamps. Do people even buy stamps anymore? Of course they do. Stamps and direct mailers are helpful if you're going to do an in-person conference. You may want to give out business cards. They also have little small leaflets you can give out. You can create them. I know for one of my colleagues, when she first opened her practice, she took some time and she researched all the pediatricians in her area. And she wrote personalized letters to each doctor, introducing herself, saying what type of work she did. She included a bunch of business cards and she mailed them out doctor by doctor, just as a way to introduce herself to the neighborhood, to the area, and provide a service to them if they wanted to connect. And it did work. She did have her specialty was developmental disabilities. So when she connected with developmental pediatricians, she was able to make a good connection for herself. So direct mailings still help. They are helpful for individuals, but also just letting people know who you are and what you do. Email is also another method. You can choose to email local people in your community. You can go wider outside of your community, just depending on what type of service you're offering. It's always good to have a professional email address, right? You can't use your old Hotmail emails and come across as a business professional. There are Gmail that is considered personal and professional, but again, you want to make sure that Gmail address is your professional Gmail, not your personal, because I've seen people do that and it's like, no, use your real name. You're now a professional. Thinking about creating a website. So there are free websites out there. This is, again, a personal preference. It's up to you what you do. There are websites that come with templates, right? They're already created for you. You just kind of plug in your information and you can upload your pictures and whatever you want to add on it. And simple 1, 2, 3 click and it's done. That's creating your own. If you use something like Wix or Squarespace, just know that it's not your website per se. It's a variation of those websites, which is why they're free. So it's never going to be your direct domain. So there's a cost, obviously, if you choose to own your domain, but you can always explore websites where they let you own your own .com or .org or whatever it is, because it does come across as more professional, but there's a fee associated with that. It's usually monthly. You can also hire someone to professionally develop a website for you. Obviously, if you hire someone, there is a fee associated with it. Negotiate it. Go to 2 or 3 people and say, hey, I want to develop a website. How much will it cost? Take your lowest bidder, and then you present that to the person you like the best and ask them if they can match that. We have to negotiate prices and fees because website development can be very costly. I do know some people who will go around and find college students who are into graphic design and they're still learning. Hey, listen, they need the experience. They want to make a name for themselves. When I created my logo, I got lucky, and it's probably not correct thing to do, but the guy answered the phone at the major logo company in my area. And he's like, well, we don't have any time until 2-3 months, but I can do it for you. He probably shouldn't have done that. but he charged me a very small fee because he was a graphic designer and he was trying to do it on the side. So I got a great deal for a very simple project that I probably would have spent thousands on. So again, using those newbies is another way to create expense, keep your expenses low for yourself and develop that professional looking website. And websites evolve, right? You can update them as needed. There are pros and cons of owning your own website domain. When you own it, you have more control over when it can be edited. I've seen people sometimes get professional websites and they don't own it and they have to go through that professional to update it, which is a lag, right? So if you're not in control and someone else is doing it, you're working according to their timetable, something else to take into account. The last thing I have on here is joining clinical versus non-clinical business groups. I've done both. Initially, I only was involved with groups like NASW or our local clinical practice group on Staten Island. But eventually I decided to expand a little bit because I wanted to develop more in the business area of learning and development. So I did go to small business associations. There's some charities out there like Rotary Club, and there's also the Chamber of Commerce in your area. There's the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. So depending on what your group is that you want to connect with, you do want to explore clinical and non-clinical business group opportunities to market yourself. All right, the fun talk, the money management piece. This is something that I've had to learn the hard way. And as we're so developed in our master's courses and our postmaster's education and our clinical CEUs, they don't teach us anything about making a profit. And so it took me some time to realize that, yes, we are clinicians. Yes, we want to help people live better lives, but we need to pay our bills. So all these other things that we have to use to support our business, we have to make sure we know what direction we're going in. So the first thing, you always want to ask yourself is, how much would you want to make per year? And then think about how much per month, With that, it's your actual income, your actual expenses, and your quarterly taxes. As people have already found out the hard way, it's tricky. Time for me to choke, sorry. Tax professionals can be very helpful. I thought that initially I had to find a tax professional who only worked with mental health people. I did not. The law is the law. However, a good tax professional, will help you learn deductions. How many people know about deductions for mental health? And right, so a lot of things that we do, pretty much everything that we do is a business expense. Our website, our marketing, our paper, everything that you need to operate your business is a tax deduction. People forget that we have supplies, that postage fees, literally everything that we do concerning the business, you keep your receipts, even mileage. If you're traveling to the post office, my accountant's like, how many miles did it take you to go to the post office? I was like, oh, wow. How many miles did it take you to go to Staples and pick up those supplies? I was like, oh, wow. So, there are some really good tax deductions that we can have, but we can't do it unless we're paying attention. So keep your receipts. So options in terms of managing your finances, some people use billers to process health insurance claims, to keep up with them. It's great to submit a health insurance claim, but if you don't get paid, what's the point, right? So there are professionals out there who do it full-time or part-time. There's also bookkeepers out there, again, part-time, full-time. I know some people who use virtual assistants, right? And I have mixed feelings about it because sometimes I feel as though when people use virtual assistants from overseas, that they don't pay them a proper wage, but there are also virtual assistants here, right? Some people do use Headway and Alma to process their health insurance claims. That's a personal choice. I myself do everything because I have control issues and I keep track of my claims and do it on my own. But I do know people as they get bigger, they do want someone else to practice their health insurance claims for them. And there are accountants who specialize in people with mental health practice. You just want to ask, If the accountant that you're exploring or the tax professional that you're using has never worked with someone with mental health, you want to keep exploring and see find someone who understands what you do, because again, maximizing those deductions is how you save on your taxes. There are apps. QuickBooks Self-Employed is for someone who is operating individually as a practice owner. It's just for you. So if you have a group practice, you would have to use QuickBooks. But if you're just a solo practitioner, QuickBooks Self-Employed is very helpful. Some people say it's a little too complicated for them. So another app that's helpful is Wave. It's a small business app. Whether you use the App Store or Google Play Store, they're both there. And a book that a lot of people have found helpful to help them get their finances in order from the business perspective. It's a book called Profit First. It's an actual book, audiobook, and there's also a Facebook group of clinicians who talk about how to make a profit. And I find it very helpful to talk to people all over the US about maintaining proper expenses, income, and just knowing that people are in the same boat with you and they can help you out and give you good feedback.
And so I'm just going to add a little bit as well. They said I personally use Headway and Alma and QuickBooks Self-Employed. They said I just do this part-time. I just have 5 clients. So for me, it's very easy. It's essentially Alma is a paid service. It takes me 3 clients and it pays for itself. Headway.co, it is free, but said the rates aren't as high as Alma. It is still great. So it's like, because they have different insurance panels. So if I have a client that's maybe switching insurance, sometimes that's not necessarily an issue because I'm like, oh, it's okay. I can just switch you from an Alma portal to a Headway portal. And with QuickBooks, again, with QuickBooks Self-Employed, it's just myself, makes it a little bit easier because again, I don't know the first things about taxes. And when thinking of your business, your expenses, what potential income you could need, some people just get discouraged just from the get-go of I'm going to need to make a certain amount of money. I don't know how realistic it is, or I've never had my own clients before. How do I, make sure that I make this amount at the beginning? It absolutely can be very scary. It can be very daunting. And I said, as social workers, we sometimes, I know personally, I don't like to fail. I don't like to get things wrong. So that just took a lot of my own self-processing of, I know I'm not going to get this right. And as long as I don't make the biggest mistake of my life, I'm going to be fine. I'm not going to go to jail. I'm not going to lose my license. I will probably just have to pay more in taxes that I did not want to pay, but that's okay. If that is, the only thing that I have against me is that I'm paying more than I thought for taxes, that's fine. But that could still take people a little while to get used to, because again, it is scary. This is something new for people, especially if they're working a full-time position, thinking of leaving that to do part-time. This is also why I started my private practice the way I did, because I still have my full-time income. That said, I knew if it took me a while to get clients, I still had a regular paycheck coming in. For some people, they don't have that luxury, and I recognize that is a privilege. I'm able to do that and have the time to be able to do that. For some people, they just need to be able to go all in. If I don't do this head first, make it full-time, I'm never going to do it at all. That's also fine. It's being able to find whatever makes you comfortable, whatever you can feel good about. I feel confident in this decision, even if, there's some bumps and hurdles along the way. Nothing is ever going to be perfect. And that is something that I think many of us, myself included, need to sometimes come to terms with. It will be okay. And we got a comment from Ashia. Used to work at an independent counseling center who does all the scheduling, billing, advertising, provides space, percentage for what it makes. It's nice because I don't have to worry about pretty much anything other than showing up. And absolutely, and this is one of those perks of being in a group practice of, I just need to make sure that I'm there for my clients. And I need to tell whoever owns the group practice of yep, I met with them for 45 minutes, for 60 minutes. This is, potentially the ICD-10 codes I need, or an F9 code, and then here you go. And that's maybe all you have to do, which is great. And some people prefer to do that as well, of you know what, let me join someone else's practice. Let me kind of see what they're doing. Let me get my feet wet with clients, and then let me branch out on my own. Absolutely. That's another way to go about it as well.
Yes.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yep. Angelique put our membership benefits for NASW in the chat as well. We're talking about.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
She muted
Yeah,
herself.
which talks about, different benefits from being a part of our committees, and just general information about CEUs, again, like our conference, just our networking opportunities. Is that the fact that you're here. This said, you want to learn more, you want to be able to network, and these are why we create these spaces, create these events, so that you can meet other social workers and other people who are kind of doing the exact same thing.
Right. So I'm coming from the perspective of someone who really is ready to take that leap for private practice. So this is a sample income slash expense report. If you notice, I didn't use any grids because essentially you can set this up how you want, right? Some people use Excel, some people use the Google Sheets, or, whatever works for you. But basically, you're now becoming a income slash expense report specialist. Apps like QuickBooks does do this for you, which is pretty cool. You click a button. There is a monthly fee connected with certain apps like QuickBooks. Yes, it's adding on to our expenses, but it is a tax deduction, right? So you just keep in mind it's a business expense, so you got to pay for the convenience it offers you. But essentially now you're tracking everything that you do. How much income are you getting from cash? How much do you get from consulting and insurance payments if you choose to take insurance? That would be your income. You may have other forms of income, but again, we're just connecting business perspective of private practice. Expenses can look like HR, which is your, if you choose to use an online health website, reporting website. Again, personal preference, but what we find is that the electronic health record is an easier form to use. Yes, it is another cost, but clicking a button and typing up your notes and having them saved in one place can be helpful, right? If you use a billing website, there may be a monthly fee if you still have physical office space. So in the beginning of developing a private practice, some people choose to rent space or share space or shared furnished space, whatever you choose to do. But if you are going in person, there may be a fee connected to that. The exception, obviously, if you are a part of a group practice, your group pays your rent, so you don't have to worry about that one bit. But when you go on as a solo practitioner, you do have to have some type of fee connected with your physical space. Some people are choosing now to be 100% virtual, which is good. However, you want to make sure if you do go with an insurance company, that the insurance company does not require you to have physical office space. I know the way around that is sometimes people will get a virtual address, but that's still the same as a rent payment, right? Because you're paying for a virtual address, which equals a physical space, but yet it doesn't. How does that make sense? No, I'm just kidding. But there's places you can get virtual addresses for. I've seen people have to do virtual addresses if they're like registered in Florida. Florida does require you to have a Florida address, but there's agencies out there where you can get a virtual address through them and they become your representative for that state. So Florida's a little tricky. California, very similar to if you want to be licensed in another state like those two. Workman's comp is only optional. You don't need it if you are working as a group practice. You only, sorry, I take that back. You do need it if you're working as a group practice. If you're working as a solo practitioner, you do not need workman's comp. So if you're in New York State, you must have it. Even if you have one employee, you're required to have workman's comp. In terms of how often you would take into account billing, workman's comp gets paid annually. Malpractice is also an annual payment. Short-term disability is required in New York State. Again, even if you only have one employee, you have to have it. Your website is optional. There's usually a monthly fee. And whatever type of admin, if you choose to have someone as a biller, if you have someone using taking phone calls in for you, you can have an admin person. Those are optional, but those are some costs. And you can feel free to add in any other costs that come to mind in the chat, but these are usually the main ones most people have. And I had a little note, don't forget to save a percentage of your profit for your quarterly taxes. Usually if you get hit the first time with that big tax fee, your tax person should say, hey, for next year, put this amount aside. And they should be able to tell you which tax bracket you fall into. It really does, like Tanya was saying before, it depends on your deductions, how many people are in your household, your family, or what other type of assets you may have.
Perfect. So all of this comes to, again, staying organized. We're thinking of profits, thinking of expenses, what needs to be deducted, how much you need to save in terms of taxes or workman's comp. Organization. Organization takes a lot of effort. It can be really time consuming as well. So again, these are also things that you can delegate to a virtual assistant, to somebody else in person that you just kind of meet with on a monthly basis of, let me tell you when I'm meeting my clients, you tell me when I have to do everything else. Or, you know, being able to kind of take the lead. Here are my passwords to my email, my virtual calendar. You help me keep track of it, my billing. So I understand the timelines. I know when things are due. It is all whatever makes you comfortable. And so with people too, they think of virtual assistants of, yes, it's another expense, but if it is going to give you more hours in the day to do what you want, and instead of spending 2 to 3 hours, you know, a day, God forbid, of looking at your finances, trying to organize your schedule, figuring out what you need to do in the next few days, the next few weeks. If someone else is going to be able to kind of minimize that for you, be able to create those lists for you, maybe that seems like a much needed expense and something that's going to give you back time in your day, so that you can spend it with your friends, with your family, especially if you have young children or pets that rely on you, being able to make time for that as well, being able to have time for yourself. A lot of practitioners forget that, so we are our own clients as well. We need to be able to take care of ourselves. We need to be able to take a deep breath, being able to feel like we can accomplish the next day, that like, yeah, there's more tasks for the next day, but I got it. I have this organization system. I have this person to help me, and I have other support systems as well. That's that, again, using networking opportunities, and also kind of figure out what kind of person you are. Are you a journal and a physical planner person? You like the pens, you like the stickers, or are you a virtual person? You know, do you like task completion apps like Trello or Evernote, or using all of the infinite things that Google has in terms of task organizing, OneNote, Google Slides, the Word Sheets, is that what it's called? I don't know, whatever the word equivalent for Google is. There's so many endless possibilities of how to stay organized, and that can also be daunting in and of itself. So it's, again, taking a step back, re-looking at your mission and vision statement and figuring out, what is it going to be best for me? Is it more time so I can do what I want, or is it being able to do this on my own? Do I delegate? Do I keep it to myself? And so from there, you'll be able to, again, have more time, or be able to better delegate the time, whatever looks for you. And it's also, again, creating a schedule, whether it's virtual or on paper, blocking things out. So I just created a very blocked schedule from like an 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. And this also includes breaks during the day for yourself. You know, people don't have to work, you know, a 9 to 5 and 8 to 4 and only do work related things. You know, you can take 30 minutes, you can take an hour to yourself of, I'm going to take you know what? It was a long night. My child kept me up, dog kept me up, my neighbors kept me up. I'm going to take a 30-minute power nap. Or, you know what? It's already been a long day. I'm going to take a bath because I have a tub and I can take a bath. Those are things that are also fine, especially if your practice is virtual. You also have a little bit of luxury that you're not physically going to your office. Like, you also have a little bit of time, because now you're not accounting for transit. You're not accounting for commuting time with those specific days. So use those. Meal prep. And I know in a few hours, I'm not going to want to cook, but I know I'm going to need to eat something. Start prepping something now. Or, you know what? I need someone who makes me laugh. Let me call up a friend who I just find hilarious, or a comedian, or something I know will make me laugh and kind of boost up my day. Laughing is a huge, huge motivator for people. I think they use that in medicine. You know, laughter is the best medicine. I think that's also important in social work as well. We can deal with really heavy stuff depending on, especially the clients that we work with. We want to be able to disassociate from that at times, you know, take a step back, especially if you're working from home, especially if your office is partially in your bedroom or in your living room. It's really hard to kind of focus of, all right, I'm working, but I'm also in my living space as well. So being able to physically just move to a different room for a little bit, do something completely separate, and then come back to it. And thinking for other areas of kind of staying motivated, of just client retention. With clients, we're starting off meeting with our clients once a week, depending on how often or, how severe their trauma may be or why they're coming to therapy. Maybe, you don't need to meet with them every single week for a year. Maybe it only needs to be for 4 or 5 months, and then you're meeting every other week. Taking that into account, thinking of future clients, of do I want to expand a little bit more? Do I want to keep it as is, but understand that, there's going to be a drop in pay? Because now instead of seeing 4 clients every single week, you're now seeing 4 clients every other week. Assessing client satisfaction. Said, are clients ghosting you? Because this can also happen, which could also be really discouraging. Of all of a sudden, client missed a session, you want to reschedule, and they don't pop up. You are calling, you are reaching out, saying like, hey, if we don't meet, and I have to take you off my caseload. Thinking like, is it me? Are they ghosting me? Sometimes they are, and that's okay. Some people feel like, maybe this wasn't a right time for therapy, or maybe, you as a therapist wasn't a good match, which is also okay. They said therapy is a very one-on-one relationship. And they said every therapist is not going to be a good match for every single person needing therapy, and that's okay. And this is also something for your clients to figure out as well. And so hopefully they will be able to tell you, like, I don't think it's a good match for these reasons. Maybe you can work on it. Or maybe if they feel fundamentally like, I know for a fact it's not going to work, okay, let me refer you out. Or if you already have somebody else you're looking for, that's great. But just being able to end that amicably. Assessing your own stress levels. Again, you do feel disorganized? You feel like you have too much on your plate? Maybe you took on too many clients as one because you were worried about the money side of like, oh, but I need to make sure I had enough for rent, for all these expenses, but now, you feel a little bit more frazzled. That's also okay. Figuring out, maybe I do need to move some clients off my caseload, transfer them to another therapist. Maybe take a step back, or like, oh, my clients are starting to dwindle. Maybe I should take a pause. That's also okay. It's figuring out what you need in that moment. And it's also the effectiveness of referral sources. This kind of goes into client retention. I think for most people in private practice, and it was the recommendation I got, it was, join Psychology Today. I'm on it. I pay for it just because if I don't pay for it, I get off of it. But I feel like I don't really get referrals. I have maybe like a person reach out to me on a monthly basis from that. I'm not using that as my main referral source. I'm using my paid membership with Alma. I'm using Headway. I'm using my website as well with my own marketing, with my own like Instagram account for my private practice. It's figuring out like, oh, I can see not really getting anything from Psychology Today. Is it worth the $30? For me, I do think it's worth it. For other people, it'd be like, you know what? I don't think it's worth it. I'd rather just save that $30 and spend it towards something else. Absolutely. Or sometimes it is also taking a pause on accepting referrals. When I first was starting with Alma, I had 30 referrals. Within 2 days, I got completely overwhelmed. I closed my referrals down. I was like, this is too much. I can't reach out to all these people. And that also, no one really prepared me for that. They were just like, yeah, you'll get a few referrals. I was thinking I would get like maybe 2 a day, 2 or 3 a day. But all right, I can figure it out. I'm starting small here. So I was like, I don't really want that many clients to begin with. So being immediately bombarded, that overwhelmed me. So I shut down my consultation. And then I went through all 30 people instead of leaving it open and continually getting those referrals. I did not want to add more stress to myself. I did not have the capacity to see all those people. But also knowing that every referral you get does not automatically mean that you're going to get a client. Some of these people, again, it is potentially their first time in therapy. I know people can get a little bit weary and decide, you know what, maybe this isn't the right time. Some people, this is their second or third time in therapy. Maybe their therapist is no longer in their network, so now they have to find a new one, or they move to a new state, which means got to find a new therapist in their jurisdiction. So they understand who they're looking for, the kind of therapist that they need, and they can sometimes feel like, yeah, you know what, this was great, but not not the exact match I'm looking for, which is also okay.
Okay, so we're going to look a little bit about being real with yourself. Do you need to take a break from private practice? And as Tanya was describing, you go in one way and it just turns into something that you didn't expect. So we want to really make everyone aware that stress plus poor self-care equals burnout. And if you do truly get to the points where you're not able to function well as a clinician, you're not going to be any good for your clients. And you may need to take a break. That's okay, right? Sometimes we experience death in our family. Sometimes people experience pregnancy. And for anyone who's had a baby, you know, when you come back, you're never the same. It's called baby brain. So burnout can happen based on life situations. So it's always important to need to be aware, are you doing too much? And is it time to take a break? Okay, so the last thing to talk about very briefly, because I see our time, the mind, spirit, and body connection. And it's coming at self-care from a holistic approach. Thinking about what are you doing to keep your mind healthy? What are you exposing yourself to? How are you staying positive? Do you have too many negative influences around your life and that you need to weed out? What are you doing for your body? I know when people work really hard, they don't physically work out because the mental exhaustion means that they don't have the capacity to exercise, but our body does need to move. Yes, we've gotten used to these virtual platforms, but our legs have not. So our legs still need to move. Our eyes need to see the sun. We need lights. We need to go outside. We need to get some air. So making sure your body is healthy by what you're eating. People gained a lot of weight in the last I'm including myself, in the last 3 years. And yeah, why is that? Because being home meant access to food all the time and not enough physical movement. And if you eat the wrong things, it can result in you not sleeping well. So it's a whole combination of being at home and not being out and about as much as we used to has led to an increase in weight gain, but it can lead also to a little bit of depression and anxiety in terms of being isolated. And so making sure your body is healthy from what you're eating, are you sleeping enough, and are you moving is important. The last piece is spirit, which obviously is optional. Spirituality means different things to different people, but having a connection to a higher power can be helpful. It can help people feel connected to the universe. So just exploring what that means to you is an important part of self-care.
I said, I do want to be mindful of time. I know we can stay over, but I know people need to leave at 1:30. I totally get it. But feel free to ask us any questions. It was about the presentation. If it is nothing to do with the presentation at all, that is also okay, because we, as I said, have a wealth of knowledge between the two of us in different fields. Or just any thoughts you all had.
Hi. First of
Hello.
all, thank you. This was so informative. I feel like I have a ton of questions and I just can't focus on one.
Lay it on
but
us.
I'm just wondering, like, what would your advice be? Like, what is something, in thinking about your own practice and when you first started off, something that you would offer advice on or suggestion on for someone who's starting to explore this venue?
Is that if it's something you're interested in, go for it. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. That's also okay. It also does not mean that you are a failure in that aspect. But I think people can be like really interested, but I'm like too scared to start. No, go for it. Ask for help, ask for support, and be okay with getting answers that you may not necessarily want to hear. I know starting off my private practice, I consider myself a creative person. I do photography on the side and I get paid to do photography. So I feel like I had a little bit more knowledge on like the marketing aspect of like how to create my website, because I had already done that. I do that already. So when I was like thinking of my private practice, I was like, yeah, it's going to be me. I don't want to ever expand into a group. It's just going to be my name as an LLC. My parents, specifically my father, he was very against it. He's like, that is your name. If you go into a group or for whatever reason you grow and you decide to sell, you were selling your name. Like, yeah, but I'm never going to do that. I'm never going to do that. And we fought about it 3 days of like going back and forth. And after a while, I was like, no, you're right. Like and I still have the vision. I enjoy being a solo practice. I don't think I'm going to expand to a group practice, but you never know. So then I created, and then I spent another 2 days trying to find an LLC on a website that had not been created yet. Because I also knew that I did not want to fight with a company or something that could be shortened. And that's how I found my LLC. But as I said, it was a lot of pushback, and it was a lot of initial frustration of, oh, I was expecting my family to like 100% support me. Like, yeah, Tanya, do whatever you want. And instead my dad's like, no, you got to change your name. I was like, why? I don't want to. So just hearing that pushback and being, again, you can still be frustrated. I was definitely frustrated with my dad for those few days, but now I'm actually very grateful because he's absolutely correct. I still don't, again, I don't have any plans to ever expand, and with expansion means the potential to sell. And again, that I don't think that will be an option for me, but it technically is still, it is an option because I'm no longer selling my name. That will always stay with me. And so it's going for it. Even if you're scared, absolutely go for it.
Yeah. And to add to what Tanya was saying, everybody has their own path that they take. It really comes down to how much control you want to have. So as I said before, I wanted to be in control of my billing. I wanted to be in control of my finances. So I'm very nitpicky and have my hand in everything. And that's a personal choice. It's exhausting, I'm not going to lie, but that's a personal choice. But the other things to take into consideration is whether you're starting off part-time or full-time in private practice, it does take about 3 years to really get an understanding of this system to build up your client base. So most people do a regular full-time job with health insurance benefits. I stress that. I wish I could like make that flash, because once you become an individual practitioner and you're not part of an organization, you are responsible for your own health insurance, and it's very costly. So to do it part-time in the beginning and work around your own schedule and do it at your own pace, I think is the best approach. But ask a lot of questions to anyone that you can connect with who you know is in part-time practice, full-time practice. Join NASW, come to these type of events. I mean, I did more studying for this process than probably graduate school. So you really have to educate yourself about everything, because it's learning about laws, it's learning about regulations, and it's also learning about management. I see Aisha has her hands up.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. First of all, thank you so much for this presentation. It was really, really good to hear your guys' perspective. I just want to, for those who are thinking about private practice, I just want to give a little story. When I first started, I accepted everybody. I was like, I want to make money, so I'll just take everyone. But then I realized that I am not a really good couples therapist, right? I am not really good with the very little ones, you know? And that's when I realized what my niche is. I enjoy preteens, teens, young adults, right? I like to deal with those issues that this population deals with. And so I learned how to say no, because the center that I work for, they always have referrals, and they're always they were looking for a lot of counselors, and so they're like, can you do this? And I'm like, yes, I can do all this. And then I realized, okay, that's not really my forte. And so being able to say no and understanding why I'm saying no. It's not because I don't want to do it. It's like, I know I'm not going to be the best person for them. You know, I want them to get the care and treatment that they need, and I'm not the one for them, you know. So just so you know, it's okay to say no sometimes.
No, thank you for bringing that up too. Absolutely. Especially if people are asking within a group practice. No is a complete sentence. I know this said absolutely. You can know, this is outside of my purview. I would not be a good match, with super young ones or couples therapists, but you also technically really don't owe that explanation to anybody else. Can you take this on? No, I'm sorry, I can't. And that's it. You don't have to explain. You don't have to justify it to another person. I think for social workers too, we want to be able to help everybody and anybody. And when we can't do that, we want to explain why we can't do that. But part of our self-care, part of setting boundaries is just saying, I'm so sorry, I can't do this right now. Or I'm so sorry, that's something I can't take on. That's it.
And if you're not able to do that, like myself, you have a friend practice the process with you of how to say no in different varieties. Jennifer.
Yeah, Jennifer.
Yeah.
Hi, thank you so much for everything that you are sharing today. I'm just wondering if you have any suggestions or any feedback. I know you said about 3 years it takes to kind of take off. I have been trying to start private practice since 2019. There was the pandemic, there were health issues, there were so many things in between. But I feel like I haven't been able to really get it started. Like I'll have a client here or there, maybe a client for a few months, and then, you know, they graduate and that's kind of it. I'm on Psychology Today. I've taken courses. I mean, I've learned so much about private practice and running a business, but it's still, you know, it's not where I want it to be. And my goal is to do this full time. So I guess my question is, like, at what point do we have to be realistic, and like at what point is it like, okay, this is just not going to happen? I know like the kind of like the 3-year mark, but considering there were so many other things in the midst, like what are some good just things to kind of look at and say, okay, it's time to go this direction or that?
Do you take cash pay or insurance?
So I was only cash, and then this year, just a couple months ago, I actually joined Alma to try to take insurance. But I was shocked when Tanya, when you said you had 30 people. I've been on it for like 2 months that I've been certified or whatever it is, and I've gotten to request and people aren't answering. Like they'll send a request, but then when I try to reach them, I haven't been able to contact them.
Yeah.
I would say, Tanya, I'm sorry. I would say, you know, you may need to redo your profile. You know, is it inviting? One of the things I learned when we have to make a marketing pitch for ourselves is we have to talk to the person, not talk to the people. So when someone is reading the information about you, does it come across as you talking like a one-on-one conversation, or is it a very broad explanation of who you are? So you may need someone to kind of review that with you just to change your marketing piece.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and that's it. I think just kind of doing just a reset. Sometimes it's also like our bit of our mindset of, should I even do this? Has it been too long? It's like, no, this is something I really want to do. Let me refocus. Let me retalk. Kind of almost not necessarily starting from the beginning, because again, you're on Alma, you know, you're on Psychology Day. Some of these things are already set up, but kind of thinking it of, all right, day one. Let me I know I'm also on Alma, going to this like the community hub, putting in there, hey, I'm looking up to build my clientele. These are the populations that I really work with. If you need a referral, reach out to me. Making sure your consultations are open. Sometimes you think that you're accepting new people, but there's some little glitch and you're actually not accepting anybody at all. And same with Psychology Today, making it inviting, making sure all the contact information is accurate, but also making your website inviting if you have a website. A lot of people, I know, at least the feedback I've gotten from people, maybe even if they haven't actually like used me as a therapist, they've appreciated that I put my pay status on, if you're doing like a cash client, on my website. They're like, I don't really see that with therapists. I always come in hoping that I can afford it, but then I realize I can't. So at least for cash clients, I know I've heard a lot of good feedback on my website because of that aspect. But also just looking at just looking at therapist websites, seeing what you personally like, what you don't like, and see how that matches up to what you currently have. And again, absolutely kind of speaking to Anjail, is it inviting? If you were a client, if you were looking for a therapist, would you see you? Would you be interested in having a consultation with you?
Okay, yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
And also that profile picture, I know that sounds a bit superficial, but you do need to look welcoming in your profile picture so people want to see you as friendly.
Thank you.
And then Anna.
Hi, sorry, I have a lot of questions.
Yeah, of course.
So I'm in the process of becoming credentialed as a registered play therapist. I'm going to be sending in my application at the end of the school year, which I'm really looking forward to. And one of the things that I struggle with is I know I want to accept health insurance, but I also want to do cash. How do you determine how much you should charge per session?
So this is one of those controversial questions that there is no one right answer. It is, and I think what people will tell me too of do the rate that you deserve of your credentials, how many years you went out, which is also, it's a very vague answer. I do private practice part-time. You know, I've been doing this for 2.5 years now. So I feel like in terms of cash clients, my rate is a little bit lower than maybe other people's rate would be. And I do that on purpose for accessibility, especially this said for the BIPOC community. But again, you're going to have more certifications. With people starting their own solo practice, I'm automatically going to assume that you're an LCSW because that's ethically what you're supposed to do. But if you're also going to be licensed as a play therapist, that should automatically kind of bump you up a little bit. And so you have more credentials, you know, you have that much more experience, you should be paid accordingly to that as well. And it's also going to be a slight pay scale between 45-minute sessions and 60-minute sessions between solo people, couples, children, children with families, or if you are working with a child, but you're just meeting with the parent, that is also going to be a pay difference as well. And it's kind of figuring it out of what you feel comfortable for, kind of looking at maybe other play therapists in the area, kind of seeing what they charge, and seeing what you think you should be paid. People will pay it, absolutely. But then also sticking with that, which I think could be the hardest part, is staying to your prices.
Yeah. And you can do a variation of what we call sliding scale and full fee. So sliding scale is, you know, if you connect with a family and they can't afford your rates, but you really want to support them, you can offer them a lower rate and explain to them this is sliding scale, this is temporary. You really should have a model that you use in terms of understanding that family's income and their ability to pay. And then you can have full pay clients. Those who don't have a financial need, they can be charged your full rate. If your full rate is too high, just know that you won't attract people. If it's too low, people will question why it's too low. So it really is a tricky process, but we all can change our rates at any point. So keep in mind, you're never stuck to one rate. The only exception is insurance companies. So if you are billing an insurance company, you have to bill your full fee. Even if the insurance doesn't reimburse you that full amount, you're still supposed to commit to that full fee every single time. Okay.
Yeah. And so this is just a little slide about the psychotherapy and wellness practitioners group. It has the link there. And again, in the PDF that we're going to send out, well, actually Angelique is going to send out because she is phenomenal. It will also have the link there as well, along for the main page for our NASW CEU conference as well. I've registered, you also register, especially right now up until the 31st, you do get a early bird pricing, especially again, we need our CEUs. This is a really great way to support social workers and just support, you know, one of the largest organizations for social workers. It's a good networking opportunity as well. And with this, people throwing out their names. I know some people use LinkedIn, some people don't. I'm on LinkedIn. I don't really use it. I do connect with people on it. I feel like I'm finding people on there and I get excited to give out my LinkedIn. I just don't really post on it. But feel free to find me on LinkedIn. Happy to connect with you. If you have any other questions, I'm more than happy to help out at all. This is, for me personally, one of the fun parts of being a social worker is networking and helping other social workers try to figure out what they want to do and lift them up, because once we feel lifted, once we feel like we're able to support the community, it goes back, you know, it creates this circle and this cycle of helping the community, helping those in need. And once the community feels supported, everyone feels supported, and usually just tends to lift up the city a little bit more as a whole. So I said, thank you all so much for being here. I really appreciate it. I think Angelique is also going to send the video out as well. So in case you forget something, you can kind of go back and rewatch us.
Yes, thank everybody for coming out. And yeah, look for more future workshops that we'll have soon.
Yeah. Thank you both so much. This was extremely well done. Let me stop the recording. Thank you again for everyone being here.